I am Dr. David Croto, and I am here with Dr. Dave Cashin, Professor of Intercultural Studies and Islamics. And we're going to talk about, this is part 2 of the 7 essential questions. Dr. Cashin, how do you use the 7 essential questions in the process of sharing the gospel with someone?
Great question. Thank you for that, David. My basic point is that when I'm sharing with a non-Christian, I want them to give me permission to continue. So at each stage, as I'm talking with someone, I give them the opportunity to say yes or no. So I begin by asking, would you like to answer these 7 questions for me? And I'll just repeat them again so we remember. Origins, where do we come from? Power, how do we get power? Empowered for successful living. Destiny, what's my purpose and where am I going? Truth, how do I know true from untrue? Ethics, how do I know right from wrong? 6th question, what's the nature of humankind's problem? 7th question is, what is the solution? And I try to make sure that I only do one question at a time with a person, and I'm thinking of people that I meet on a regular basis. It could be in a store, it could be at a place where you exercise, wherever that opportunity presents itself. Like I said in the earlier clip, I just did this last night with a gal who's working in the pharmacy that I go to quite regularly. So if I see her today, which I'm going back to the pharmacy today, I'll ask her, and she gave me permission. She said, yeah, I'd answer those 7 questions for you. So today we're just going to talk about origins. What do you think about origins? For 2 or 3 minutes while I'm standing, making payment for some item I'm going to buy. So we'll go through that maybe over a period of a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, depending on whether she's there or not, and we'll go through those 7 questions. After each question is answered, when I go home, I will pull out a note card. I will write her name on the note card, and then I'll write down a pithy quote, something that she said that really summarized her answer to the question. That becomes my understanding of her. It also becomes a prayer card. Then I'll begin to walk through the questions, and each time I get some interesting pithy quote, I'll write it down. And the value of that is, at some point later on, when she gets to question 5 or 6, she may say something where I'll say, oh, that's kind of like what you said on question 2, and I'll cite her back to her. At which point she'll realize, this guy's actually listening to me. He's actually interested in what I think. And of course, non-judgmental attitude. I'm not disagreeing with her, I'm just trying to understand. When we get through question number 7, very often, the person will have already asked, how do you answer these questions? I had a gal do that at the Y that I later had the privilege of leading to Christ, not the last stage, but most of it. And she was asking almost every time, how do you answer these questions? And I would gently say, well, I don't want to influence your answers. So let's go through what you think. And then at the end, if you want me to answer the questions as well, I'll be happy to do that. So we get through the 7 questions, and then I'll ask for permission. Would you like to hear how I answer the 7 questions? And then maybe the next time we meet, we'll take question number 1, where I will always say something like this. Well, I believe that we were created by God in His image. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 through 28 talk about the fact that God created us in His image. To what purpose? Well, the purpose is that we're like Him. We are made for the purpose of intimate relationship with God. So it's not just that God made us, but He made us in order that we would live in relationship with Him. And so as I go through over maybe 7 days, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I'm essentially walking through those 7 questions, and in essence, I'm sharing the gospel with her. And that'll be my plan. And along the way, I'm also going to make connections to the things that she's told me, because I want her to see that the gospel is relevant to her and her situation. And of course, the whole time I've got my card there, and I'm praying for her. When I get to the end of my answers to the 7 questions, I'm going to ask her one final question. And the question is this: do you have a personal relationship with God, or are you in process? Now, typically, if the person isn't interested in hearing anything more, they will say, well, I'm not really interested in that, or something like that. And I respect that. Okay, they've already heard the gospel. So I'll just marinate in prayer, because the prayer card is still there. Continue to pray. sometimes they'll say, well, yeah, I do have a personal relationship with God. Now, that may or may not be true, depending on, the answers that I got. It may be that they're a Christian. At that point, I can do discipleship. Do you think you could share these 7 questions with friends of yours and see if that opens the door to deeper conversation? But the group I'm most interested in is the group that says, I'm in process. That generates the final question, which is, would you like to finish the process? So with this gal at the Y who came to faith, we got to that point, and she said, yeah, I'm interested. And I said, okay. And here I don't want to do something, you could do almost any system of evangelism at this point that you want. In my case, I really only have one major thing I want to show them, and that is I draw H on a piece of paper, no big complicated designs like, John 3:16, just a simple H, and I'll put a cross and an E. And I'll say, here's ego, that's you, here's cross, that's Christ, who's on the throne? And she said, well, I am. And my response is, well, if you want to become a follower of Jesus and find his way of life, his relationship, bringing you into relationship with God, you need to put the cross at the center of your life. Do you want to do that? And she said, I need to think about it. I said, that's fine. So the weekend, actually, that this happened was Easter weekend. Sunday morning rolled around. She got up and said to her mom, I want to go to church. Now, these were not church-going people. So they went to church, and the church was actually, Pastor Estep at First Baptist. His son, Pastor Estep, was planting a church at that time in the Y. So they decided, well, let's go to the Y, go to the church. And he, of course, preached an evangelistic sermon, and both mom and daughter went forward to receive the Lord. When I came in to swim on Monday morning, came in through the doors down at the end of the corridor, the Lake Carolina YMCA, she was standing at the desk and she was beaming, and I knew instantly that she made that decision to follow Jesus. So I didn't get to the harvest, but hey, I'm really not an evangelist. That's not my gift. But it's a joy to plant seeds and to know that God will answer and that there will be some that bear fruit. The key thing here is you're not going to do a system of evangelism regularly where you're constantly getting rebuffed. Most people aren't like that. There are Bill Joneses and others who will do that no matter what. Most of us need to see a positive way. And what I've found is that this really works well, and I rarely have to deal with being rebuffed. It happens occasionally. But most of the time, it's a very interesting. I've had atheists say to me, you're the only religious person I can talk with. Mm-hmm. Well, that's where we want to be. Yeah. And we'll see where the Lord leads from there.
It takes some of the fear out of it because you're just asking questions at the beginning.
Right.
And you're developing that relationship. Mm-hmm. But it's not like a relational evangelism where you never actually get to the gospel. Sometimes that can happen. Yeah. But the questions are all guiding you toward that spiritual conversation.
And at each stage along the way, I'm giving the non-Christian permission to say, no, I don't want to hear more.
Right.
And when we get to the end, it's not like I've been pushing the gospel on them. They invited it.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I hope others will pick up on this and make evangelism part of their lifestyle.
Well, show us your book again, in case someone wants to get more information.
Now, this doesn't give you the method or the system, the key questions of, would you like to hear my answers, and not that question, do you have a personal relationship with God, or are you in process? So those key questions are not mentioned in here, but the basic substance of the 7 essential questions is in this book with the 2 fishermen on the front.
Excellent.
Which I think is appropriate. I love fly fishing.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Cashin, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.